Oh yeah, yeah. When we talk to Joe, we think London and Liverpool, and
Yeah.
he had to
And
actually explain where he's from, and like we had to get a map. It's like, oh, this little area, and we're like, oh, you're by the beach, and he's like, beach.
It's more like it's more like where the cliff used to be.
Yeah, to get myself psyched up for this live stream, I was watching, and I posted that on Facebook. I was watching a Keanu Reeves with puppies.
Yeah,
I was like, if this is not the best thing in the world, if this doesn't make you smile, we cannot be
That's
friends.
the cutest shit ever. Yeah, answering fan questions too. That's just...
I've yet to see it. I one of those things that I do those try not to laugh challenges as well as try not to smile or try not to challenges. See if I still have feeling in my soul.
We should do
I
that.
never win.
That'll, Adan, when you come back, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do a try not to laugh.
Oh, I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna lose every single time, at least twice, because I just laugh. I just can't avoid it.
Okay, well, your rule will change it. Try not to laugh 5 times.
Yeah, perfect.
5 times.
I might pass. I might pass that one. Yeah.
Yeah, my dogs are they're barking downstairs. I'm so glad you guys can't hear all the craziness that's going on my side.
That's a really good
country
mic.
or the world.
Yeah, that is really good. Either that or really good soundproofing.
Or we are just deaf. We're just like, we can't hear. Yeah.
What?
What? I can't hear the dogs. What? Yeah.
I can hear downstairs just like a bundle of like screaming. I can only assume that people are either talking about something or that something very funny is on and my mum is laughing. My mum usually watches something on TV around about this time, and my brother is just sit there just like on his iPad and he's just going, I don't want to watch this, but
Yeah, you probably should have led with that, because the first thing you said was, I hear screaming downstairs, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Listen, wait, what? How common is
Wait a
that?
minute. You're very calm about this.
More shrieking, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If it's screaming, then you'd see me just turn around a little, go, I think someone's in my house.
Oh, God.
Well, it's a good thing you're
butter
doing
knife.
a live stream right now. We can be concerned from a distance.
Yeah,
There's an axe murderer. Don't worry, there's an entire ocean.
That's what I thought about, yeah.
At least me and Adan are safe, and we'll carry on without you.
Really cool.
We'll keep your spirit alive.
The last thing that you will hear me say is, if only gun control, and then I am just stamped to death.
The last thing you'll hear me say is, I'm not a scientist.
But
I think that boy's dead.
Cool. Well, it is 2:00 in my time, Texas. There's actually 2 time zones in Texas, but where I am, Dallas, it is 2:00 in the afternoon. Where Joe is, it is 8 p.m. in the evening. And where Adan is, our special guest, Argentina, it is 4 p.m. Is that correct?
Yeah, 4
I can do
p.m.
that.
exactly.
Yes. Excellent. Cool. So I'm Des. I'm from the 12D20 group. We do RPGs, we do D&D, Pathfinder, one-shots, all kinds of stuff. We do different game systems, and in June we are going to start the beta testing for our area for the Animite Tales, and I'll let Joe talk about a little bit of what he does, because he is the RPG developer with his brother for that.
I'm Joe from what we call is the Batarians. We call ourselves that for a couple of reasons. Mostly because that we are currently creating our own game, a RPG, tabletop RPG. I can't speak now currently. I've been a developer for this game for the last 2 years, basically trying to get some information, ways on how some of them work. In sort of trying to sand them down a little bit so that they work a little better for other playtesters who have had a little bit more experience with RPGs to kind of just like make those translations. So Des has been helping me with that. Yes, I've been making the game known as Animite Tales, an RPG based around its own universe where superpowers and other strange, mysterious things exist.
That's so cool. Yeah.
And today we have our animator slash guitarist slash amazing person that had developed my favorite character, Essay, the lovable and mischievous character. I tried to draw Adan's bird cyclops back here.
That's great. Yeah. That looks adorable. Like, I love it.
And you recently released. Oh god, this video is hilarious. For any players that are trying to figure out what a player is, go watch this video. It's called D&D Usuals Unlucky 20, and that is. And Adan, I'll let you explain that one if you want to.
Yeah, so D&D Usuals is a series of videos I'm going to be releasing. I've actually finished 2 more, and I'm trying to finish the 3rd one. It's things that are usual, but people sometimes think they're not. And this specific video is about when the DM gets natural 20s, which is my unadulterated, unfiltered reaction of how I actually like express myself with my DM when it goes out. And it's very funny. And I laugh when I watch my videos because it really calls to, well, how I play D&D. And you will like it, and it's great, and you will relate. It's relatable comedy.
It is. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it is beyond relatable.
So relatable.
Especially as a DM watching that, I'm like, yep, that's how my players would react. That's exactly how my players would react. So that was definitely an inspirational video for anybody who plays RPGs, role-play games, tabletops. But where do you get your inspiration for animation? You've done a couple, the Eyes Closed series, and then, but where do you get other inspirations for your animation?
Well, usually for my D&D animations, it's a mix between my DM, which he's very creative. He has very interesting depictions and descriptions. He describes a lot of color and world and expression, which really gets my mind going. And I get home after a long 8-hour session because we only get together once a week and we have to enjoy it. And I'm like, oh God, that was so good. And I start just writing. I write like 15 word pages of notes on the campaign. And I have tons saved by now. I could write a book about this shit. It's so good. And it's between that and also a lot of animations on YouTube that I kind of get inspired from. So Oni-G, the old stuff from Oni-G and Egoraptor inspires me a lot. And also a lot of podcasts of D&D. There are a lot of great, I retweet a lot and I watch them all. Because just watching how other players enjoy and how DMs describe things is like, how can I translate this description to accentuate and spotlight those DM kind of niche into visuals. So my DM for example, I have a series, is Eyes Closed. And my DM, when he described how things looked when we close our eyes in the game, he described a lot of color and a lot of how sounds made us, so we would hear a strong wind and maybe one character would think that sounds like screams and the other would be like, that sounds like something I experienced when I was younger. So all of that I tried to translate it somewhat into a visual medium. And that's kind of where I pick and choose from to make the things I do. That's
fantastic. Yeah, that colorfulness definitely shows in like all your animation. I love it's. I had never seen that kind of animation style. Well, there's different stuff that floats around the internet, but when I was actually watching your videos, I was like, this is really cool because it flows in a way that it leaves a lot to the imagination. And that's what I absolutely love. So thank you. Muchas gracias for coming to this. And I'm so nervous when I speak my Spanish. My mom is half Spanish and half Native American. So when I speak it, I'm so nervous because I'm like, my mom's going to disown me because I can't speak it very well.
No, mama, por favor.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually going to say about one thing about your channel. Something you brought up. You said that you wanted to do a little bit more in your native language. Just have ones where it's just literally speaking Spanish in some of your videos. I think that would be a really really good sort of pool where you can do, you know, one in English and obviously one in Spanish. Because obviously it sort of like grants like a uniqueness to your channel. Like you were saying this a while ago, about half an hour ago, but something that I heard from someone a while back was if there's like nothing in that market, you make that niche. Like you make that niche and you own that market. Like you basically, if you can't find anything that like anywhere else that does that, then you're the person who is going to make that. And
Yeah.
I think you could do it.
Yeah, I got that idea because I watched Señor Pelo, which he makes amazing animations, super funny. And what he does, or at least he used to do more often, was he would make a story time animation, and he would make it in Spanish and in English. And I was like, yeah, that's really good idea. You know, that's really good. That hits both markets, and a lot of more people can enjoy that content and watch it and interact. So I was like, I could try to do that for my future D&Ds. And that's why what I'm trying to do with my D&D usuals, because they're shorter, they're easier to make the whole, because I feel I can experiment more with angles, you know, and styles of drawing. I can go crazier with that. So I was thinking I should probably do in Spanish. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah.
Absolutely. And in your animations, you do play the guitar at the end, and you release 2 videos where you're actually singing the entire time. So how long have you been like a singer? Do you do professionally, or how long have you played the guitar?
Well, I've been playing guitar since I was 5, and I've been singing my whole life, but I started singing somewhat professionally. Like I've sung in some bars before. About 2 to 3 years ago, when I was playing the subway to get some money to charge my sube, which is a card you use to go in bus and in subway here in Argentina. And my friend was like, hey, you're really good at this. You do videos. Why don't you do that in your videos? I'm like, you know what? I should. I actually should. And so I started doing that. It is very fun, and I can sometimes try to match the song I play with what happened in the episode. I fail most of the time, but it's really fun to try.
If you fail, we don't notice.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I will sing it in Spanish, so no one will know. No.
Yeah.
But and recently I've been trying to do D&D songs with my guitar, so I make a tune and make some lyrics that reflect my experience with D&D, and I just put it out there. And recently, my most recent music video is one where I grab everything I've done in all my videos and I mash it up to the tune, and it ended up looking really cool. And the first time I saw it after finishing and after uploading, I felt like something in my chest, like, oh, this speaks to me. Like, holy shit, like, yeah, it was really fun to make. It was really cool. I really liked it.
That's your most recent upload, I believe, right? Because
Yeah.
there's one with the barbarian and there's that one.
Yeah, it's D&D with Friends is the song. It is a mashup of Spanish and English, which is basically is my D&D experience and YouTube experience as a whole, which was a minute and a half video, I think. So yeah, it's a video I'm very proud of. I'm not that proud of most of my singing videos, just because I always sound like, this could be better. But this one is like, no, I think it's good like this.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So those of you that have not seen it, go and check out Adan's videos. And I even posted on Twitter, he actually did, Adan, you did a Q&A where you did a fast painting or fast drawing. So if you want to know more about Adan and about his adoption with Sam, and how's that?
Oh, that song exploded. I didn't expect it to be so well received.
But we're not going to talk about that because that'll be a spoiler for your jokes. But that is an inside joke with Adan. His like Sam Riegel. I'll just put that out there.
My adopted father now. Yeah.
And we'll put that out there so you guys can go investigate.
Don't look it up. He can say yes. He accepted.
But today we are. Let's tag him on anything that's Adan.
Everything.
Eventually we'll get there.
At Sam Riegel, what's going on with your son?
Cameraman number 5.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk about PCs. What is a PC in the world of RPGs, which is role play game RPG? A PC is player character. Now this is a type of person, or this is a person that another person makes up, a player makes up and creates so that they can interact with the RPG story. So a DM would be a dungeon master. GM, which is kind of the universal for RPGs, is game master. So game master thinks of this crazy story, amazing story, not crazy. Of course, they're never crazy. This amazing story, and you gather people, or you at least try to. You gather a bunch of people, and you have them interact with the story, and that's what a player is. And that's, you know, after watching a lot of Adan's videos, it's like you're like the basic player. Like you are the player that is players among players. If you had to define a player, go watch Adan's videos, because the reactions that he has in his stories. And again, I'm trying not to spoil any of them, but okay, I'm just going to stop talking because I'll start talking. But to get into this topic, Adan, what kind of RPGs have you played?
Oh, are you talking about tabletop or just in general?
Tabletop specifically.
Then I've played just Dungeons and Dragons so far. I started with 5e. I've kept it up for a year and a half by now. Mm-hmm. And I've also tried 3.5, but it was super punishing. Yeah. I'm the kind of player that if I get too punished, I'm out, man. I want to have fun. But it was really fun, though. It was a really new experience for me. But
3.5 came out with Pathfinder.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not too savvy in release dates, but yeah, I've tried 3.5. I just really like version 5e. It's my favorite.
Oh yeah. They've been working on this since the 70s, and they definitely hit the nail on the head.
Long time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, when they came out with 5e, a lot of people were happy, and I think that's why it's getting so big with players now, is because creating a character is just like, you can literally do it probably about 10 minutes. And it's just, it's crazy. So, you know, creating these characters, using your reference from all other RPGs, definitely 5e has definitely. Sorry, I'm looking at questions too. I get easily distracted.
Perfectly fine.
Where's the Jaffa cakes?
Oh yeah, that's what I was looking at. That's exactly what I was looking at. I wasn't looking at questions. I was looking at Jaffa cakes.
No, I was saying that's one of their quotes. I guarantee you. I don't even have to look at the Twitch stream. Someone is asking about Jaffa cake.
So you played definitely 5e. So when you develop a backstory, and Joe as well, with Animite Tales, how do you guys develop your character backstory? Do you think of stats first, or do you go straight into what you're looking, like how you want to play a character?
I personally, I often think about how the character plays. Like, for instance, if I make an NPC for like a campaign, one of the very first things is I go, so what's their deal? What kind of niche do I want to fit? So like, say for instance, like, do I want a creature? Do I want a boss? Do I want a mini boss? Do I want a super villain, superhero? What kind of abilities do I want for the party, or for the main out branching narrative for the campaign? And eventually I go, I want this power, or I want them to do this, or I want them to be this type of class, or I want them to be this species. And then eventually I'm going, what kind of way would they fight? So I'd give them a weapon, an object, and then afterwards I stat them out. I give them health based on the particular sort of difficulty they're supposed to be. As a player, I literally just go random, and then I build my character around that. But that's mostly because I like to be more comical. So if I have a character who's really, really intelligent and really strong, I like to break that stereotype by just going, don't worry, guys, and then just flicks his glasses. Oh, I've got this, and just bashes the door down with his elbow or something, and everyone's just like looking at us like, what? Don't worry, guys, Professor Hulk on the case.
Oh my God. So you think of the mechanics first, based on what you're trying to achieve, and you go through that process.
For the NPCs, I do. For player characters or for PCs, when I do it, and when a lot of the players that I've had do it, what they do is they either come up with a way that they want their character to play as, and then they just roll for the stats, and then put the stats on the most likely sort of areas.
Yeah.
Because they want to have these sort of characters. I think the only problem with this style of making a PC is sometimes it can be limiting. Like, you could go, so I really want my character to be really intelligent, and I really want them to be really good at this particular thing, but I also really want them to have this ability. And then you roll for all their stats, and it's like 8s and 10s, or, you know, it's super average stats, and it's like, oh, there's nothing that really sticks out, so I can't make them more intelligent than they are strong. Or, oh, their ability that I rolled for, or their levels that I've got aren't enough to boost me into that category of really good. So I think that's kind of limiting when it's a player, but you can build up that character. So I personally, for me, I'd say roll random and then create your character based on that, or have a preconceived notion that your character might not be able to be as good as you think they will be. And I kind of like that concept of like, don't worry guys, I'm the most intelligent one here, and it turns out that he's got like the third like worst like intelligence.
I'm not a scientist.
Yeah, I'm not a scientist, and it is that exact thing in a nutshell. Just like, oh, don't worry guys, I can lift up 10 pounds more than my own body weight, and someone can like lift up a car. You're like, well, it was impressive where I came from anyway.
That's so good. That's actually really good.
I guess just what I'm saying is be adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Aiden, how do you create a character? Do you go like Joe? Do you do stats first, or me? I usually create a background first. Like, I'll create a story of this weird person, whatever, and then I'll create my stats based off of that. Which way do you usually?
Well, stats for me are not really important because, they're important in game, like as a mechanic, but I kind of think like stats are relative. You know, when it comes to role playing, you can always, like, you can have a barbarian with 20 intelligence, and he can still be really, really dumb, but then in battle, he's like a master strategist. You know, he is unbeatable in battle. He will always have the best ideas when it comes to destroying someone. But then you're like, well, what's 2 + 2? And they're like, I don't know. You know, and I think to a certain extent, they're relative. So what I do for creating characters, ever since my first character, it was like, I first create the person. So, for example, I'm going to take Discord, which is a character that has died already. It's not going to appear in any more videos. He's a high elf druid. And my idea was, I want to make a spoiled brat that has to learn. So I made a high elf because my friends told me, well, high elves are all brats in nature, basically. They're all brats in somewhat of an extent. So I was like, okay. And I want to be a druid because I want him to learn by connecting to nature. And my DM was like, are you sure? Because high elves get intelligence. And I was like, oh, whatever, you know, okay. So I ended up doing a high elf druid. And I created him first, like he's spoiled, he's like a nymphomaniac, he is super open with what he thinks, and he doesn't really understand how the world works. So he did a lot of excessive things. He got drunk out of his mind. He always tried to do drugs and failed with his friend Bob the Wizard. And and then I made a backstory to match how would a person become like this? How would a person become a druid? Why would a high elf become a druid? Why would a high elf go out on an adventure? Why would because he was 500 years old. So I was like, why would he still be so spoiled at 500? And then I made the whole backstory that was he escaped from home because he thought that his parents would judge him by who he was and how he acted. And then my idea was he would meet them. And we're like, no, we wouldn't mind. Like, why didn't you target with us? You know, and we'll be like, oh wow, that was really easy. And the idea was that. So I made the whole backstory after. So but making it short, I made the character. I made a backstory that would explain why he would turn out, how he starts in the adventure, and stats are just something I add up to mechanics and to some extent roleplay.
Oh yeah, so that's like 2 completely different perspectives. So that's really cool. So you were talking about different, you know, how you develop these interesting ways to kind of connect things that might not fit together. But how do you put your own personality in any of the characters that you
Oh,
have. I
yeah.
know, like in your videos, Essay gets scared a lot. Is that something that reflects off of you, maybe,
Oh,
or as a
yeah.
player?
I have this thing that when I get scared, I get like, I throw punches when I get scared. So yeah,
So be
I
careful
once
if you're playing
in
D&D
high
with
school, a friend was like, boo, and I was like, oh, and I broke her nose.
you broke a
So
friend's nose.
yeah, I was so sad after that, but they scared me, and I got like, so yeah, it's like a reaction. So this character, Ese, he is a 15-year-old Kenku,
Mhm.
so he's really really young, and he's really inexperienced, and it reminded me a lot of me. So I was like, okay, so he's a monk, and he punches things, right? And he has 9 intelligence, because I wanted him to be dumb. And he was like, okay, how would it? Me, I was dumb when I was 15, and I punched a lot. So he will get scared. He will not really understand how to solve things. And it was that creating a character I always put. So I think everyone to some extent, they put some of them on their character, even if they don't realize it,
Mhm.
or even if they don't do that, they explore something they did who they wanted or they want to be like. So, for example, I once made a character that was really, really, really good looking. Like that was his main thing. And I was like, because I never really felt that way. So I wanted to explore how it would feel if everybody around me was like, oh, he's such a good looking guy. I wanted to feel that. So, and I didn't understand it at the time, but after a while, I did. Um, I did end up doing that, and I realized, oh, that's why I did it. So yeah, I do think everyone really somehow explores a part of themselves through their characters.
I know one thing as a DM, a lot of people, I go onto DM chats and stuff like that, and I look to see what other people are saying. And, there was this funny thing that's been going around the internet. It's like, a DM, is it a therapist? Probably. Because
Kinda, kinda.
you're seeing your friends, like, especially if you've known them for years, and you're seeing them play these characters, and a little bit of them starts coming out. And I know we have this, my one player, Selena, she likes to, like, I've noticed a trend. All of her players like to start torturing, like, psychologically, people. And, like, when we talk about psychology, outside of game, it's like, I can see where her characters are getting this from. So it's like, you have this kind of person that puts themselves a little bit into, it's like, obviously she wouldn't mind manipulate somebody else, like that's just not her, but her character, she kind of lives through that a little bit through her characters. Which is fun to see, kind of a little scary, but but it's fun to see, like, players start putting themselves, and especially if you've known them for years. But Joe, like, I know Simon, I haven't gotten the connection between you and Simon yet, other than the British accent.
That's very rude of you, Des. There's so many things. It's
You
kind of
can't
weird.
turn to jelly or not just slime.
For me, it's kind of weird because I make characters and NPCs, and I try and make them. I guess one of the biggest things about me is that, like, I believe that, like, there can be a joke made for about anything and everything, and if it's placed in the right way, and it's and if the audience that hear it have the right particular taste for that sort of joke, then they'll find it funny. Now, I'm not saying that every joke is a good joke, especially if it's at the expense of another person, but I'm saying that almost any kind of joke can work in a certain scenario. So, I mean, like, my character, Simon, he is like a pastor who also is a guitarist, and he wants to just spread the good word of, like, his God. But his power is to turn into slime and jelly. And it's just because that, like, his body can't be affected by physical damage, but he can be, like, affected by any other type of the elements. Like, if he gets hit by water, he'll basically dissolve and be unable to move his body. If he gets hit by fire, just like a normal human, he'll be burnt. Everything like that. And the thing that I kind of make with a lot of my characters is trying to figure out a way as to how to, like, the certain situation that they're built for, and making them sort of be pushed into that scenario where it's like, for instance, Simon, it's quite funny because he can turn into slime. So in certain serious moments, like, it's like, oh, this is actually a good power. But in other words, it's like the dude just turns into slime. Like, he's not able to harm himself, but he's just jelly. Like, there's very little things that you could do with jelly, and then he shows different ways that he can be used in that way, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess it's kind of cool. But then you see like other people who could like snap their fingers and make a massive explosion, and then you've got people who can like transmute matter, and there's this guy who goes, don't worry guys, jelly. I guess that's kind of me. Like I would create a character in almost any situation who can be the comedic character, even if then their comedy is not flat out obvious. Like they're not the the comic relief character. It's just at this one point in time, someone will laugh. However, who it is is dependent on what happens. And when creating a character, I do put a small piece of my personality, more my ambitions and likes and fears in them. So rather than like a character like saying like, oh, and I'm the Joker, ha ha ha, I'm funny, ha, and they're really not funny, because I don't really consider myself to be very funny. So what I do with a lot of characters is that I'm like, man, I really love this concept of this power, or I really like this idea of a character acting this way, but it like the background makes sense as to why they sort of like speak in this manner or do these particular things, and that's what I do for them. Like for instance, Simon, sort of based on the concept of if you met your god in the flesh or in the visual aid, and a being proved that they had godlike abilities, is that belief anymore? Is that faith, or is that just knowledge? Like, yeah, I believe that they are a god, but it's only because that someone literally showed me with my eyes, rather than you must believe in faith rather than believe in knowledge. And that's kind of like the whole point about Simon's deal, is that he comes from a land where there is a being, like a human shaped being made of pure space, like a silhouette of space, and it can transmute matter and know everything about time. And Simon's met him, and it's just like, oh, I must share the good word. And that's the sort of point of the poisonous personality that he's kind of got. Like, he's not evil, but it's just that he's like, oh, you must believe. Why? Because I've seen him. But if you can prove that, then that's not faith anymore. And that's the kind of thing that, like, I guess that's sort of like the message that I put into that character, rather than like, oh, here's a personality trait of my character. They do or they say these things, or like, or in my brother's case, like, he makes a character based on they love Jaffa cakes.
That's actually a good point. Like bringing other things from our outside world into our characters. When we build our characters, and that kind of slips into the next question is, as we're developing characters, we start thinking about, like, I know what I do is I start thinking of, when I'm describing this character, what nationality should I envision possibly, when I made the character Tsukiko, she's obviously from Japan, from this world. And when I made Helga, I kind of made a kind of a stereotypical burly woman from Germany. but have you guys ever thought of that? Have you been inspired by different cultures when you create characters, and if so, which ones?
Short answer, yes. A little longer answer, there's literally a character in one of the sessions on Saturdays that I do called Jack the Leprechaun. That's it. I'm not going to answer with any other questions.
Well, he must be from France. Got it.
Yeah.
Adan, what about you? What kind of cultures inspire you when you create characters?
I've traveled to a lot of Spanish-speaking countries in my life, so I do draw most of the inspiration from them, from those countries. Mm-hmm. So, for example, Ese, in my mind, I have never really talked about it much, but in my mind, when he fights, he has a style that is very similar to capoeira, which is a dancing ritual kind of fighting style from Brazil. So in my mind, if Ese was human, he would look of Brazilian Portuguese descent. He would have that vibe. He's an ex-pirate, so he would have that really open clothing for the sun and the heat. and he would be this very easygoing but also very aggressive dude. I don't know. I do sometimes draw inspiration. I do not so much draw from nationality. I kinda never really thought about it that way, and it could be a very interesting way to create characters around, because that's can inform so much about their beliefs and the way they interact with others, and can create difficulties, and also can create so much easiness between characters. That could be really interesting to explore. But usually, I think more of how do they look, and does that inform their character, or is their character very much what you wouldn't expect from what they look like? So, for example, I made this Warforged cleric, Bertrand, and he is a huge juggernaut, 420-pound war machine with the mind of a 15-year-old.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, he's a protection too.
That's fun.
So yeah, and I was exploring kind of that. What would a kid, like someone with the mind of a little kid, in the body of someone that could crush a skull with not even thinking too much about it, what would they act like? Would, like, even if, and I made him shy too, just so to make him even more fun. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, and I was exploring that because it's really interesting to have this association between how someone looks and how they act. It can be so interesting. It can create really dynamic situations. You know, like I played one session with friends, but to explore my character, and it ended up becoming a situation where Bertram, this huge monster, and my friend, this really tiny half elf, became a mother-son relationship. So this little half elf would be saying like, "Don't mess with my son," and he would have five, like a 7-foot-old monster, you know. So it was really fun.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I do kind of draw inspiration from that, from more of culture and places I've been, and a lot of South American Spanish-speaking culture. What about you, Des?
Yeah, absolutely. I know even as a DM, you know, when I'm creating NPCs, you know, maybe I'll have a Swedish accent that I attempted one time, and it was actually pretty good. But but yeah, even for NPCs, I definitely try to cross cultures so that it's kind of a variety. And I actually do. I know we did when Stan Lee passed away, we did a Marvel one shot, and I created a story where Doctor Strange took all the characters, basically all the Avengers, back in time to Rome, ancient Rome, and I actually looked up Roman emperor names and different, where in Rome the streets, what would it be, how would the citizens, and I said, you know, you can't understand them because they all speak Latin, and you're from the United States.
That's so cool.
Yeah. When I create characters and stories, I definitely I will research and for Animite Tales, when we do that in June, I'm doing a crossover between the Wild West and Japan, and that's going to be a big challenge for me because those are two very very different cultures.
East and the West.
But it's so exciting because I'm from Texas. That's like when people say, "Oh, you're from Texas. Do you have a horse? Do you have a ranch?" It's like, I've seen a ranch somewhere, and I've ridden a horse.
I know of horses.
Yeah, and we're going to Japan in September, and so putting that research that I've done for Japan into a culture that I'm kind of used to, being, you know, the stereotypical cowboys and stuff like that, and putting those together, it's really, really cool. So I love crossing cultures. That's what I like to do.
If I was your player, I would be so fascinated because I would want to know everything about this. Like, how is the sense of honor from Japan matched with the lawlessness of the Wild West? You know, what is, like, you know, when they meet at 12 and they get their guns out? Is it like, how is it? What presentation does it have now that is Japanized? You know, now that these two very different countries match together, I don't know. You could do so much with it. It's such a good idea. Holy, you are really great. I really want to know more about this now.
Hey, I'm gonna start asking you if you can do some one shots with us.
Absolutely, yeah. Please, I want to know more.
in July, we'll make a Oh, that's a good idea. Sorry. When I start getting ideas, even my players are like, oh, Desiree, you got a good idea. It's like, I literally can start talking to somebody, and I can start writing ideas. Like when Joe and I wrote the Wild West Japan story, I was like, oh, this. And I just started writing down it. As I'm talking to Aiden, I'm like, it could be the crosses between Spanish cultures, because a lot of people think it's like, if you think Hispanic, you're thinking, oh, that's Brazil, that's Mexico, that's Chile, and all Tijuana and all that stuff like that. And it's not that at all. Like Spanish cultures, when it goes from like Mexico to Spain, it's night and day.
Yeah, it's incredibly different. Yeah,
and even Brazil, Argentina, completely different cultures.
I mean, it's just
cool.
to make it to give you an idea.
I'm writing it down right now.
Countries that are next to each other, like Argentina and Uruguay or Paraguay, they're very different like cultures. Like Paraguay has a very deep connection with the indigenous people there. So that compared to Argentina, it's more colonized, but also we ourselves in history have Americanized and made our culture more Europe-like. So it's incredibly different when someone from Paraguay comes here. You already know they're from Paraguay. It's like, and it's so interesting. It is so crazy how different so many cultures can be.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to think that Canada and America, they're basically the same, right? And then I made some research. And I was like, no, they're not. They're not at all.
It's a bit like when people say the British and the Scottish people are the same. It's like, well, actually, what you call as British, we're all British. Technically, what you mean is English and Scottish. And it's the same sort of thing. Like, oh, people are like, yeah, Irish and English are different people. But the thing is like in Britain in total, we obviously have like so many different things. Like we have, like it's like in America, we have different like counties and states. Instead of states, we just call them counties. But because that's how small of a country we are. But we have different segments, and we have different accents and cultures, and even like different languages. Like in Ireland, like you have Gaelic. In Welsh, like you actually do have the Welsh language, and like in Scotland, like you just have the accents, and in England you have so many different types of accents. In England, I mean, in London alone, there's like 3 different types of accent in London, and that's at minimum.
Here's a fun question I just thought of. As players, I know with Simon Lime, I know Joe, you kind of tweak your accent a bit when he's a little bit more proper. Aiden, do you do different accents for your characters, or is it just your voice?
Yeah, most of the time I do different voices.
Now you really need to be in our one-shots, because I need to see this.
when I do one-shots in Spanish, I usually don't really do different accents. I usually just do different voices and different ways of talking and referring to different things. Mm-hmm. So I will have a character that refers to a fight as a battle, and another refers to a fight as a duel. And those differences, because accents are not really my strong suit. When I speak in English, I do voices, but I also try a kind of a different accent sometimes. With Esse, it's a special case because I have to imitate the exact same thing my friends say, and I have a notepad with at least 15 to 20 pages of everything my friends said that I find I could use later.
Oh, nice.
So I have to imitate the voices my friends make. So it's really fun. It's really an interesting experience, a player experience, not having your voice of your own, so having to imitate. So, for example, Fox, who is an asshole, he called her.
Not Fox.
He's a warlock. He's a warlock. Warlocks are just the worst. But
sorry out there for those who like warlocks.
I know, I'm so sorry. Aiden, my character Aiden, my avatar is a warlock. So Eldritch Horror Chan is his page. But he called another player a donkey. And from then on, Esse, every time he feels superior to someone else, he's like, donkey. And it's like, it has become something of pride for him. You know, it's like you say donkey when you feel proud and better than others. It's like it's really interesting exploring the world that way. So yeah, that's me.
I
What
mean,
about
personally,
you? Sorry.
no, I was just going to say, personally, I do actually have different characters that I've done. I do have different accents for. As I said before, the NPC Jack, he's Irish. I try my best Irish accent. I actually have family in Dublin, so I have a lot of different family members who all speak Irish and Southern Irish accents, and I don't know how well I do. And personally, I think if I actually did that accent in front of them, they'd probably be a little offended. But like that's the kind of thing like you just build that sort of character. We've got Albert, who's like sort of he talks mostly in a very like refined English accent, and tries to pronounce and speak with absolute clarity. So whenever I speak as Albert, I try to make sure that I know exactly what I'm saying before anything is spoken. And therefore, like if my players ever hear him sort of stutter, they're like, something's wrong with him. Like, oh no, he's repeated himself. And so they're like, that small detail was enough for people to go, he's angry at this one person because he can't speak properly. And that small detail was able to carry on into the character that people would actually see. And we have got a couple of other characters. I've got a couple of other characters that use American accents. I'm not good at an American accent at all, but I try my damnedest. I've got a couple of Russian accent characters as well, but certain ones are like really difficult to pull off, like French and Spanish. Like I'm terrible at like certain other specific accents, like French and Spanish. I'm awful with the different types of like sort of Europe accents, like like the difference between like Swedish and German and Swiss as well. I'm terrible with those. I just do flat out stereotypical German for this one character, and so like I can do sort of like basic things so that everyone who's playing the game can go, oh, okay, it's this guy who's talking now, rather than just go, they're all in the same voice and I don't really know. So I mean, without visual aids, it's better to have audible aids. That's because I'm able to like do those sort of voices and have only a certain amount of characters in a room at a time before I run out of voices. Like, sorry guys, there's only 8 voices that I can do, and there's only 8 people in the room.
Well, when you create your character, have you ever gone to the other gender? So like I don't know why I always kind of go toward, when I create a character, it's usually a male character and I just make my voice lower and just like be more serious or goofy, or I make him really ridiculous and he has a really crazy voice kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I really, it's weird because I don't like playing female characters. I don't know why. I really don't. I feel like I would muck it up so bad. I was like, I don't want to represent a female because I'm not a great one. So it's like, I try to aim toward guys. I don't know why, but yeah, I lower my voice and stuff like that. So have you ever done the other gender as creating a character?
I tried a little while ago. I'm terrible at them. I mostly try and just not do the voice, mostly because I can ham it up, as they would say, like make it sound really camp. If I was just trying to make a character that was like super over the top, but I can't make a serious like female voice, mostly because I just keep thinking I sound terrible and I'm offending everyone. Because I actually did try to do a voice on one of the tables, and someone actually said to me at the end, like, by the way, was that character a female or was that character gay? Because I don't know whether to be offended or not. That sentence alone just made me go, I don't know which one to say.
Yeah.
That's when you just ask them. It's like, which one would you prefer it be? Which one would you like that to be?
Which one would make you less likely to punch me in the face? Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I usually, as a player, I do mostly males or non-binary or just non-disclosed, because I feel more comfortable and that I can explore the character more. Usually with female characters, I usually do them in one-shots and do very specific characters that have been written up, because I don't really feel comfortable doing a female character for a long game, because I wouldn't know how to explore that aspect, and maybe it's kind of because of how I am, but when I am a DM, most of my characters are female for some reason. So for example, I have this long campaign I've been doing with my friends, and they are the same people that I do the campaign I do my videos in. And in this campaign, they have like this elf warrior that is in a bar, and she gives missions. And there is this tiefling that is very clumsy and has a shop. And there is this very matter-of-fact black market dealer. And she sells all kinds of shady objects that you never know. Do they work? Do they not work? And I do like making, like I have a turtle girl that is like super old, that it manages a library in the town. So, and they all have distinct voices and distinct personalities. And I find myself way more comfortable because I can write them up and I can understand, like I can evolve them without improvising too much. And that makes it easier to give them a voice and a personality. Like one of the players fell in love with the tiefling. Like that's how good it gets. So yeah, I do like making like different gendered characters. It's really fun, and it lets you explore sides of yourself too that I have never explored before too. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that goes back to the DM being like a best friend slash therapist. Like, how would you like to explore yourself today?
Yeah, exactly.
I saved this question for last because I actually I had this conversation with another one of my players. And especially as a DM, as a brand new DM last year, I started the Puzzle Traveler, which is where the 12D20 group comes from, and I made the mistake as a DM of telling my players, no, you don't need a backstory. We'll just see how it goes. And now I'm having trouble fitting in. Why should they take these quests seriously? Why should they be so involved as players? Why should their characters even care? Because it doesn't mean anything to them. And now I'm kind of struggling. I'm like, all right, I need to figure out what these people's backstories are. But as a player yourself, from the player perspective, how important is your character's backstory to the story? How do you how is that? Is that confusing?
Really
I know both of you are like.
That's a really good question.
See, like that personally, as a narrator slash DM, it is important only as much as you need to be, because you can just say, come up with a reason as to why you want to do this. Because originally in the very first alpha group, we actually just went, you all want to be heroes for whatever reason, and in your own ideal of justice, you just want to be heroes. You just want to earn money to beat bad guys or to rescue people, or you just want to be fame and glory. And then originally that was how it went. And eventually they built up backstories like, oh, I come from this country, or I do this, or this is my job. And eventually when the game sort of progressed more and more, that those became more important. My brother created a character called Filius Sol, which in Latin actually means son of the sun. Now his ability allowed him to basically become solar powered. So basically he could suck up the sun like as if he was like a plant, and then all of a sudden use that power for a temporary like boost in strength and dexterity. And he'd have this axe that was like made from like parts of like this strong material and forged with his blood. So it would also get bigger and stronger the more sunlight it absorbed. He'd be running around with this big axe. And his backstory was literally just like, my father is like a hero in this city, and I've stolen his like credit card and I've got like loads of money. But it's like, but I'm now on the run from one of my father's like mercenaries that he's like called upon me. And I don't know his name, but he's been pursuing me for the last year and a half. And so that was thrown in there. We had another guy who had a character who was just like, my backstory is I've got amnesia, but one of the things is that I'm not from this world. Like I'm from another version of this planet, and me eventually leveling up will eventually mean that I start remembering parts of my past, and eventually I'll start realizing that I need to go to my other world and find out why I was sent here. Another one was just like, oh, I'm just a traveler, and I'm really interested in like playing music in front of people, and that's the only thing that I want to do. But if I get to travel more and inspect more about the world, then that's something for me. And the other person just went, nothing, just nothing. I'm just a traveling warrior. Like I just have a sword, and that's it. And that can be quite difficult for any player to just go, so what do you like? And they just go, I don't know. I just like things, I guess, or I don't like anything. You know, it's kind of hard. So I would say that backstories are important, but the DM doesn't always need to be 100% involved in it. Like, I wouldn't say that your backstory should ever be something that forces the DM to work around you. But if you can speak to the DM and actually say, like, my background is about this, could we do this about that? Or is it just okay that like my background is about this particular thing, and it only gets mentioned because it's more the thing that shapes my character's personality rather than something that moves the story. Like a bit like we had this one person who was like a historian, and they wanted this book to be like part of a side quest, and we were like, okay, but then we're just going to have to come up with something. And I came up with this really big quest, but I was like, you have to do it with other people. And then they did it on their own, and they got their butt handed to them by like a character. That's exactly the thing. Like, there's the difference between that and a guy who just goes, yeah, like I'm a tech support officer. I was a mercenary, but I haven't got any of the skills anymore because it's been a couple of years. And to be honest, I've just like been sat down in front of computer screens for the last 3 years trying to learn how to like help people out in like technical support. And that's literally how they made their character. That was one of my favorite characters because the personality was always, he'd go up to someone and he'd go, hey, can I help you with your text, anything, I can help you with tech support. And everyone would either say yes, and he'd do nothing different, or no, and everyone would just be like looking at him going, one day you'll get it, man. One day you'll get it.
One of these days. What about you, Adan? How do you think a character backstory is important when you develop characters?
Yeah, I think for a character to develop in the world that the DM created, it is incredibly important to have a backstory of some kind. Some backstory. It doesn't need to be super complex, super explored. But I do think it's very much a backstory of a character. In D&D especially, is very much a collaborative effort between the DM, just like Joe said, the DM and the player. So if you're the player, you have to do a certain extent, make a backstory, try to make it so it can somewhat apply to the world of the DM. And as a DM, you have to be, well, maybe I could change somewhat of this world to allow for this to happen. Because it's not a big change, because if the player also keeps in mind the needs of the DM, then they both can easily fit together the story of the DM and the story of the player. And for example, I had a character that had been enslaved by bandits their whole life, right? So they killed them all except for the leader and escaped. And then they meet with the party, they have some adventures, and we get to a downtime where my character is very strong now. And he's like, I don't need to stay with this group anymore. I could just go out and kill the bandit by myself. And then there was an event where we found a black market. And in that black market, there was a slave trade. And unbeknownst to my character, the rogue bought a slave because it was tied to his backstory, because he's the last of the wood elves. So he found a wood elf girl, and he was like, I need to know more. I'm going to buy her. I'm going to release her from her bonds, and we're going to talk. So he brings her, and my character is appalled. He doesn't say anything, but he's very much horrified because they know his backstory. So, and the rogue is not very talkative. So because he is very reclusive for being the last wood elf. So he doesn't tell the reasons for buying a slave. So in the middle of the night, my character wakes up, breaks the bonds of the elf, and just tells her to run. And after that, my character has stick with the group just to kill the rogue. He just wants to kill the rogue. So That's the new reason why he's getting stronger, because the rogue keeps getting stronger too. So I hope it leads to a level 20 battle between the two. So yeah, I'm just,
Yes.
or a betrayal, who knows? But the point is, my backstory worked for a reason, a very good reason too, for my character to stay. And it was all thanks to my DM knowing my backstory. We worked it together. He knows the backstory of the rogue, so he could anticipate something like this happening, because the rogue he grew up as a rogue, so he knows you shouldn't steal from black market dealers. It's gonna end badly. So I'm just gonna buy it. It's gonna be easier. So he knew so well he could orchestrate all of that, so our characters would have a reason to stay. It was just great. It was a really great time for my character. So yeah, I do think backstory is incredibly important, as long as both sides of the DM screen can talk it out first. So yeah, that's my experience and opinion.
Oh yeah, definitely. I absolutely agree with both of you. Especially as a DM who didn't have their characters create a backstory, I feel that a backstory is extremely important. It really helps their reactions too. Like you said, you wouldn't do that, but your character would, kind of thing. If I could quote that. And when they do something, like when the rogue bought this, bought the slave girl, and your character was just appalled, your backstory helped you create this new kind of quest and this new kind of heart and soul into your character that you hadn't explored before until now. So that's really cool. Oh, somebody is a little late to the party. They're just now logging on. Hello.
I heard that in the meeting. It's like, how the god? Oh, he's a really fan. How are you doing, buddy? Thanks for having me here. They're so nice. They're so nice.
Cow the god.
Yeah.
This recording will be on Twitch for 21 days.
Yeah.
Put it on YouTube too.
It's gonna be great.
But yeah, that's definitely thank you, Adan. This was a blast, getting to pick your brain about what is a PC and getting to know a little bit more about your stories and your characters and my favorite essay. Hopefully, I think that story is done. You said, right?
Yeah, it's close. The story with essay is close to done. Okay. It's gonna be a new chapter after that, but I'm gonna take a long time, because I want to really work in these D&D visuals, because I think it has a lot of potential and it's very fun for me to do. And then I can come back to Soul's Worth to finish it up with a big bang. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
I have a huge respect for animators. The work you guys put into everything you do, the voices, you actually have to write outlines and the scripts, and you have to do the voices, and just everything going back and forth, and the editing.
Storyboarding, the line art, and yeah. I mean, I'm really glad I got to talk with you guys. It was really fun. You guys obviously have a lot more experience than I do, and I really respect that, and I really like
I definitely wouldn't say that.
But,
it's good to see you.
We appreciate the compliment, but we're not going to tell you any otherwise.
Padding their heads for sweat. So,
your perspectives were great, and you do have this aspect of DMing that I'm very new to, that I really liked. I also kind of picked your brain with that, because I want to learn a little bit how you guys thought about that, and it was great, and I really liked it. You're really nice too, so
you're nice too. Well, definitely, thank you, Adan. Again, I will add your link to this YouTube video, and I will blast this on Twitter. And if you guys can go out and watch Adan's videos, if you don't know who he is, shame on you, because now you know who he is. But yeah, and hopefully, we'll definitely. I was writing notes for my my Spanish one-shot. It's gonna be in July.
If you need help with that, just ask. I'd be glad to help.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll pick your brain for that one too.
Sure.
But, and then again, thank you to my co-host Joe, who's our RPG developer. Adan, before we let you go, do you have anything you want to promote?
Well, my YouTube channel, it's Adan. You can look me up, Adan D&D, and I'm gonna appear probably. I do animatics. I do
this
stuff.
This is
in the background. That's exactly me. I do videos of D&D stories. I do animations. I do music. Sometimes I draw the music too. And that's basically what I do. I am also in Twitter. I'm Bird Cyclops in Twitter. You can follow me there just to see me complain all the time, just like I do in my videos. So it's great. Yeah, and that's basically it. And I hope you all have a great day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Joe, do you have anything you would like to promote?
Two things. First of all, obviously, Patreon for us at the Baytarians. We desperately need more and more help each and every passing day, week, month. We desperately need more and more support each time. We're trying to make this sort of like a more of a less of like a hobby and more of an actual project that we can actually earn money, so that the actual project doesn't suffer for it. And not just that, but also anyone who actually is part of the Patreon can actually see all of the different tiers and find out like how else that they can be a part of the actual Baytarians, like Animite Tales servers on Discord, and even get design your own character for the actual game as well. So if you guys want to do that, then you actually get to speak to me or my brother or one of the other like a couple of other playtesters who know enough about the inside and outs of how like mechanics work, and they will basically be able to help you build a character, an NPC that you have been able to make. And basically, yeah, that's a good way to support us. And the other one was actually at some point soon. This is sort of like a little preview of just explaining this. Some point soon we want to be adding something to a new something to the 12D20 group's YouTube channel. Now these are going to be called the explanations or the info files. Basically, at some point, we will be doing it where I will be writing scripts and then recording audio for explanations of pretty much anything in fiction or basically just anything in general. Like we'll explain stuff to do with superpowers, bits and pieces that are in like certain things of fiction, sci-fi, fantasy. So if you guys have any like requests, hit me up, message me on put in the comments in Twitter and Twitch or even in YouTube, and I'll be reading them. And so if you've got any sort of ideas for an episode, then we'll be doing them. At the moment, we're sort of like teetering between three iconic powers at the moment: super strength, super speed, or telekinesis. And then after that, we'll be moving on to the sort of more unknown, or at least less known sort of powers, so that everyone can sort of like get like a 101 explanation as to how they work and where they've been seen before. And yeah, we'll be doing all sorts of stuff. So there's going to be extra content for the 12D20 guys. And yeah, no.
I'm gonna volunteer you for this. I know Item Pouch, he is thinking about developing an RPG as well. So I'm gonna volunteer Joe for this. If you have any questions about developing an RPG and what goes into that and all the sleepless nights that go into that, definitely reach out to Joe on Twitter. Definitely. I'm sure he'd love to answer those questions. Yeah. Bags into your eyes, I don't see it. But as for us, yeah, we'll definitely be doing the crossover, the Baytarians meets the Puzzle Traveler group, doing the Wild West meets the Japanese culture. That'll be in June, so we're super excited about that. And again, you'll be the first. If you watch us that live, you will be the first. This is to watch the beta for the Animite Tales for Joe's RPG. So we're going to have an animation for that. We're going to have all kinds of, it's a big deal for us. For both Joe's team and mine.
It's a big deal for me.
No pressure, Joe.
But I mean, if you guys really enjoy it that much, then hopefully we'll try and do a little bit more one shots. I might even DM for one of them at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll hand those reins over to you as well. Reins. I'm from Texas, apparently. Okay, my Texan came out. Sorry. But next episode, we are going to have John from the Red Dice Diaries. We're super excited to have him over. He is a RPG role-play game tabletop reviewer. If you watch his videos, I love all the RPG books. You just look at all the RPG books behind him. You'll just drool. It's crazy. It's awesome. He is currently working on a Midderlands book review, and that's going to come soon out on his channel. This weekend, however, John will be at the UK Game Expo, and he is going to be doing games on demand. So he will be at the expo. And that next episode for us will be June 12th. So 2 weeks from now, 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 2 to 3. Central Standard Time, that's Texas time, and then 8 p.m. to 9, that's British Standard Time. And then that's all I have.